sleeping. Oh, yeah. Squatch-D TV, they're on the case. Steve and Chris, no mystery they can't face. Busting hoaxes, exposing lies. They're the champs of the Bigfoot mystery. Mystery. Bringing truth, science, and clarity. Squatch-D TV, they're the real deal. Uncovering the truth, it's time to reveal. Squatch-D TV, take us on your quest. Find the legend, put the rumors to rest. Late at night, shadows creeping. Deep in the woods, secrets lay sleeping. Oh yeah. Squatch-D TV, they're on the case. Steve and Chris, no mystery they can't face. Busting hoaxes, exposing lies. They're the champs of the Bigfoot mystery. Bringing truth, science, and clarity. Squatch-D TV, they're the real deal. Uncovering the truth, it's time to reveal.
Welcome to Squatch-D TV, where the truth is first before all else. Join your hosts, veteran investigator, TV personality, and author Steve Coles, and from the Kentucky Bigfoot Research Project and the Kentucky Fried Fixes channel, Chris Bennett. Sit back and prepare to take yourself on a journey with the longest-running Bigfoot podcast, Squatch-D TV. Here are your hosts, Steve and Chris.
And good evening, cyberspace. Welcome to Squatch-D TV for today's date, June 30th, 2024. I'm your host, your guide, Squatch Detective Steve Coles, along with my co-host right down there, Mr. Chris Bennett. What's up, Chris?
Steve, what's been happening to you, man? We've been having some nice weather and stuff down here.
Yesterday was all rain.
Oh, you got rain on? Oh, well.
Yeah.
Hang in there.
And today we had rain in the morning, and it just brought out that good old New York State humidity.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Last week was really hot. I mean, you guys got the heat wave too up there, I'm sure. And this weekend's not been too bad.
It was, I think it got up to like 82, but it was so humid it felt like it was 92.
Yeah. Yeah. Welcome to the jungle. Yeah, you walk outside of your house, you got a towel off by the time you get to the car.
And you would think a state like New York that's so cold in the wintertime would be so humid in the summertime. But
you are next to the big water too, though, so that would say. But the weather pattern goes the other way, though, so I don't know. You got a lot of lakes.
Well, I think a lot of the humidity comes from the jet stream.
Yeah.
Which see, I didn't go when we beat Medicare. Anyway, no, it comes down from the jet stream. Well, so I think what happens is we get a lot of humidity from the Great Lakes from the jet stream into that area, because the Great Lakes are huge.
Yeah.
And I don't like getting political, and I won't. This is how should I say this? If I'm going to make a statement on that or a comment on that, because I know people would love to know my thoughts on some of that. Listen, I'm a citizen of the United States. No matter who gets elected, they are my president. And when I see my current president with what appears to be some lack of mental clarity at times, I don't care about the election. I'm worried about today. Because if you don't think the bad guys out there weren't watching that debate, they were. So people are talking about him stepping aside for the election, hell, we should be invoking the 25th Amendment right now, or trying to. That's my thoughts on that. Because, you know, there's things that need to be answered like that sometimes by a president.
Yeah.
And so that's it. That's all I got to say on that. It is what it is. How I feel about it's my opinion. Has nothing to do with politics at all.
Or Bigfoot. Yeah.
Or Bigfoot.
Yeah.
So that's that. And please, chat, let's not discuss that in
please, guys. We don't do politics here, and how anybody votes is their business, because that's why the voting booth is private.
Exactly. And there's two things we don't talk about here: is Bigfoot and religion. You know, everybody's entitled to their own beliefs, left, right, indifferent, whatever. They're all
politics and religion.
Right.
Politics.
Right. You know, because I feel, and again, one more quick opinion, I feel it doesn't matter what side of the fence you sit on. If you're out there trying to get involved in government, trying to move forward an agenda to better your country, that's the true definition of a patriot.
Yeah.
So no matter what it is, even if it's no bueno or you think it's no bueno, you're still being a patriot because you're trying to get involved and change things for the better. End of story.
Everybody loves their country.
That's right. Okay. So tonight we were talking about Bigfoot and what's your legacy. Now, this is the kind of it seems like a light subject or a quick subject to talk about, but it's very deep. But let's think about this for a minute. Think about all the researchers of the past. What was their legacy? Right? Yeah. And it doesn't matter how you feel about a particular person right now or today. It's what's going to happen 10 years from now, 5 years from now, 25 years from now, 35 years from now, when you're long gone and departed. Because I've been doing this now for 26 years. And I probably don't have another 20 years in me to do this. Hopefully I'll have more than 20 years in me. But, yeah, there's going to come a time when, you know, going out in the woods is not going to be a thing. You know,
going out in the woods now, then suffering for 3 days later sucks.
Well, here's the thing, and what, maybe this does have a tie-in to that debate. You know, is there a time, number one, when it's time to hang up the shoelaces and going out? Okay, you may have that venue like John Green, very lucid gentleman until his death. Always talked about it, was apt to still research, but he wasn't getting involved in the field for a number of years. Right. Very fair. Peter Byrne, the same thing. He would talk about it, but he wasn't doing research in the field. And that's, you know, there's going to come a time at my age when they say, how many years do I have left now? The clock is ticking. Maybe 15, a good 15 years left. I'm hoping I can get into the woods when I'm 70. Of course, I know, you know, God bless him. You know, one of my good friends' fathers turned 76 this year. He still goes out and hunts. Drives his, you know, his quad around, gets out, climbs into the tree stands, does what he needs to do, and hunts. So you don't know what, you know, you don't know what deck you're going to get dealt with, right? Yeah. I take medicine every day to feel healthy, to feel good, to feel well. There's going to come a time when that medicine isn't helping, and you know, maybe more drastic needs need to be made. I don't know. You just don't know. So, one of the things, you know, the reason why we were late tonight is because I was drinking my energy, and it was in a can, and it fell out of my hand. And that's one of the things I'm noticing with this injury and this deficit is that for some reason, I have the dropsies when it comes to my left hand. I'm constantly, I'm a smoker, and I'm constantly dropping my cigarette, having to pick it back up. I do that about, once or twice every other day or every third day.
Yeah. You're going to have to talk to your doctor about that next time you go, man. That's serious.
Absolutely. Yep.
Nothing.
I don't feel like there's a strength difference, but what there is there may be a lapse of, there may be something triggering in my spine that's causing my hand to open up a little bit more.
Yeah.
Don't know.
Clenched or something. Yeah.
Yeah. But we all have our limitations. We all know what we can do and can't do. And where people, and we've seen this happen before. I mean, if you want to go back to last Thursday and you're seeing a blatant, a blatant, obvious example of somebody, trying to exceed what their ability is to do. Look at what was it? The Walenda, the father of the Walendas. I mean, he fell to his death. He was in his late 70s trying to tightrope walk. Come on. If you just said, "Hey, listen, I should not be doing this anymore," and that's a good way to ruin a legacy as well. I mean, that's, here is, I believe his name was Walter Walenda. Here is the patriarch of this family that has performed for 40, 50 years now in circuses and sideshows, and amazing people with their ability to walk tight ropes, and how he's passed that on from generation to generation. And what's he remembered for? For being an old guy falling off to his death. Yeah. So, your legacy can change with the snap of a button, snap of fingers. Yeah.
Let's do roll call, Steve. Come on.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm getting into our discussion for the night already. So, yeah, go ahead, do roll call there, Chris. It's here.
First in was Walter Kroll. Hey, Walter. Good to see you, man. Then we got Sharon's in. All right. Bigfoot Society stuck in the Cleveland airport. At least they have Squatch-D TV and ice cold Snapple in both hands.
There we go.
And the Bigfoot Society, I've been listening to that 2-part series also, and I think Daniel Weeks has been listening to it with Connie from Iowa. It's interesting. So if you guys go over to Bigfoot Society channel, check him out too. We got let's see, I think I already said Walter Crow. Little Kilroy.
There he is.
Get out. They pulled me back in.
They keep pulling me back in. That was a Sopranos line.
Yeah. Charlotte J. I haven't watched that in a while. It's probably about time to go ahead and binge watch the Sopranos.
That was in I think that was in the first episode where they were watching something, and Silvio gets up. I tried it, but they keep pulling me.
That was a good show. Okay, we got Charlotte, Patrick Barron. Hey, Pat. Daniel Weeks. There's Walter again. Let's see. Ristel. Hey, Ristel. Angel Nolan. Welcome. You guys have to excuse me. I don't have my reading glasses with me. Vault of BS. Welcome, Vault.
We know who that is. Dun, dun, dun.
Don Gumow Jr. Good to see you, Don.
The other Don.
Sandra Piper. Roy Longley. Hey, Roy.
Roy, good to see you, sir. Welcome.
Let's see. I can't get lost this time, guys, because I'm reading these off. Sasquatch Wizard Adirondacks. Good to see you, man.
John, how are you?
Jeff D. Smith.
I know I saw Tactical Bigfoot Research in there. I saw Finding the Trackway. Hello, Grasshopper.
Mike.
Don Fuller. There's Don. Arthur Watts. The Bat Mom. Hello, Tessa. What's going on? Jay Fritz in the house. And Jen, our bouncer. Hello. Ristel. Mick.
Hey, Mick.
And I think We got Buttworm. Buttworm's in the house.
Buttworm,
Sneaking
welcome.
around.
Gary Johnson Sr.
And thank you, Mick.
Wow, Mick, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You guys are too kind. Lance Windsor, Mrs. Trackway, he's here. Hi, Mrs. Trackway.
Mrs. Trackway.
Yeah. Boris Kahn.
Boris, what's going on, brother? Kaiju Ninja 1985. And Robert Denduven as well. Hello, guys.
David Parker.
Kaiju, no, that's not a Wookiee. That's actually a Bigfoot.
I think I got everybody, but you guys, excuse me if I missed everybody. It's not because I don't love you. It's because I'm not wearing reading glasses.
I think we got everybody.
I think so too. I'm down here at the bottom either way.
If you want to, just write Chris a nastygram.
Yes, if I've missed you, just let me know in the chat, and I will correct that issue immediately because I'm not too proud to admit when I make a mistake.
So, getting into this whole legacy thing, there's a reason why Bigfoot is talking with Darth Vader because, I will have to admit is that one of the greatest sagas or literature that turned into movies or whatever of our time growing up was Star Wars. I was in 1977, I was 8 years old when that movie hit the theaters. And it continued on till the Return of the Jedi, which was in 1983, which told the first sequence of events. So from the time I was 7 years old to the time I was about, 15 or whatever heck age I was when the final episode came out, 15 or 16, 15, no, 16, well, whatever.
You were a young whippersnapper.
I was a young whippersnapper.
Hey, I'm old enough to remember the Star Wars lunchboxes, the metal lunchboxes.
Oh, yeah.
And stuff. Yeah, those were cool.
Sure.
Those were cool.
So, and when that first came out, people thought it was a story about a young farm boy on this, this condensation farm collecting, water from the air or whatever, going off to this great adventure. And it really turned out to be was a story about Darth Vader and his legacy and what was he going to leave behind. And, was he going to be legion of these, the starting of a whole new Sith breed, his son or his daughter or whatever. And it's about, making amends. And how would Darth Vader be remembered? Darth Vader would be remembered for getting rid of the Emperor. Not for all his misdeeds, which we saw in the subsequent films.
Yep. And I was a Darth Vader. Darth Vader was my hero throughout. I saw something good in him, and I was vindicated. Oh, man. When they did Return of the Jedi, and old Vader just got rid of the Emperor. I knew it. I said, "That's it. That's it. Yep. That's my man. That's who I've been rooting for this whole time."
Right. I agreed. Now, many years ago, there was this meme, and they had a bunch of Bigfoot researchers on it, and their characters. And for some reason, somebody assigned me Darth Vader, like I'm the evil good.
And I would take that as a compliment, personally.
I do and I don't. And let me explain why. A lot of people think my legacy is debunking hoaxes. And let's face it, I was and I'm not tooting my own horn, but sometimes people have to understand this. I was the first person to use metadata on a picture to debunk a Bigfoot encounter, to debunk a Bigfoot film, the Sonoma video hoax. First one to do that. Nobody had done that previously. The metadata, was not consistent. I can't get the mic to me.
Well, one of the reasons people see you as a debunker, Steve, is because if you look up the Georgia Bigfoot hoax, there you are. This was debunked by Steve Coles.
Yeah, but they were doing that even before that. Because I had debunked the interstate video hoax, the LaSalle's Fall, Wisconsin picture, the Sonoma video, and standing to some points too.
Yeah.
But in truth, people will try. I mean, people has always tried to minimize things like the New York, the Pridgeon video, which I was the first one to bring out, aka the New York baby video. I was the first one to bring that one out.
Yep.
I was the first one to say, listen to an investigator go, well, did you, well, the guy sounded kind of goofy to me. I mean, how did he sound goofy? Yeah, the guy talks like a character. He talks like this a little bit, and that's just the way he is. And, and he never met him face to face.
Right.
He never even looked at the video.
He just formed an opinion based on the
guy, the way the guy speaks. I talked to the guy at length. And being an unbiased person, you see, we go back into the other discussion about, letting your confirmation biases and your biases deter decisions that you should make or not make in the course of an investigation.
I was biased about the New York baby video for the longest time. I was biased. And, it took talking to an actual real investigator, you, to get me to look at that video the way I should have been looking at it all along. I was quick to judge. I just thought, well, obviously this looks like a monkey bouncing around in trees. It's got to be a monkey. But once you start looking at it closely, no, it's not a monkey.
Right. It doesn't make sense. But anyway, the point's not to debate but
yeah,
the fact is that fact, the Vermont trail cam photo, there's another one that I brought out to the public as well. Now, whether you think that these are Bigfoot or not, that's irrelevant. The fact is they're out there and they weren't minor pieces of evidence to review or analyze or anything like that. But people forget that and they go back to this. And it kind of goes back to my prior discussion about, when I go on certain shows, like, oh, don't name names. Don't name names. Have I ever done that on anybody's show? Unless they've asked me to, or gave me carte blanche to do that. And I don't go around, and I try not to bash the same people week after week after week after week after week. I try not to do that. But some of them are very crucial to my what I try to espouse. My real legacy is trying to get people to investigate in a different manner. It started off with what would Sasquatch do? From 2010, I started formulating primate habitation and their behaviors in their particular habitats and their portions of the habitats and how that relates to Bigfoot research. People are still calling them Class A and Class B sightings. Like they're part of my experience, like they're flipping UFOs. They're not UFOs. These are Bigfoot. And we have to look at the behavior involved in them. That's what makes it important. Somebody's in the forest and all of a sudden they start getting thrown rocks at and they see something off in the distance. And now they're getting rocks.
That's one of the things that, I think is important too. It's not necessarily the sighting of the creature is not that important.
Right.
It's more importantly, what was it doing when you saw it? Was it doing anything?
Right.
Was it resting? Was it?
Hey, there's my buddy John Wiest. Hello, John. Good to see you.
John, welcome. John's got a good point. I'm gonna put that up. Put that as said, Steve, you've always presented evidence to find the truth. Even when we met in Erie, you investigated your SIGs like there was a true mystery in the filters. Okay. Yeah, we've looked at evidence that we liked too, right? I mean, it's not just like not everything is a hoax,
Right.
and unfortunately, so there's a lot of hoaxes out there. But I know I've seen lots of
Right.
evidence, and Steve has presented evidence that I liked.
And I presented evidence that I liked. And unfortunately, does it conclusively prove anything? No, never does. Because you can have the best piece of photo evidence unless you have that creature or something science can test.
Right.
Right. And I think that's probably the more important key word, I think, and probably one of the better words I've used is that science demands something they can test to confirm the existence of Bigfoot. Tracks you can't test. The way you can test is their DNA, is their blood, is their hair. Combine that with a sighting. Then you may have something. Combine that with any other piece of evidence. Then you may have a discovery. So I think that's really huge.
And a lot of the founding fathers of Bigfoot, the Four Horsemen, I don't think Grover Krantz ever had a sighting. Matter of fact, towards the end of his life, I had read where Krantz would go out and drive logging roads late at night with a high powered rifle, hoping to have a sighting.
Right. Well, none of the Four Horsemen had a sighting of their own. Now, I don't know why that is. And maybe why that is because they were the first. They were some of the first. And I will be remiss without acknowledging researchers that have become before me to help hone and come up with new ideas and new ways of doing things. If it's field research or if it's, which the whole 2010, what would Sasquatch do? That Bigfoot behavior model, that was aimed for the field. The next book I wrote was about looking at the legends behind the Bigfoot mystery and looking at the stories behind the Bigfoot mystery. And then the book I just wrote is about how to look at Bigfoot claims. My focus has always been on the behavior aspect of it. Can I track? Hell yeah. Can I see signs of predation, scat, looking at animal tracks? Yeah. It's all part of the job. Do I know everything about plant life? No. Do I know a lot about rocks and minerals? Some, but not all. Do I know, I not an expert or not enough to call myself knowledgeable. Instead of using that word expert, knowledgeable in certain aspects where I would defer to somebody that may be a horticulturist or an ecologist on that. And the same thing with now, the interesting thing, do I have a biology background? Do I have a medical background? Well, yes, I do. I was a paramedic, for crying out loud. Yeah. And there is a lot of things that, now, what does medicine have to do with? Well, one part of medicine is biology. And you know how a body works, regardless if it's a dog, a cat, a human being. We all need, if we're a mammal, we all need oxygen. We all need food. We all need water. And we all have things that can affect our systems differently. You don't give a dog onions or grapes. They're very bad for dogs. Or chocolate.
No raisins either.
No raisins. Well, they're great.
Raisins are grapes. Yeah.
Yep. The fact is that, there's foods that we eat or particular people will eat that will backfire on them, literally.
Right.
You don't give somebody that has a gluten intolerance bread or pasta, right? You don't give, and truthfully, people call celiac disease, a gluten allergy, it's not really an allergy. It's a very violent reaction in the body. If it was an allergy, like somebody that eats peanut butter that's allergic to peanuts, what happens is they start swelling up and getting, that doesn't happen with a person eating, if a person with celiac disease eats gluten, they end up having horrendous stomach and gastric anomalies in their system. That's a reaction. It's not technically an allergy.
Well, I know one thing we eat here in Kentucky, and I'm sure other people eat it too. It's called poke or poke salad. And if you don't know how to prepare that, it's poisonous.
What poke salad? Never heard of it.
Poke salad, yeah. You get a poke plants and you pick the leaves off of there, and they have these purple berries. You don't mess with the berries either, but you pick the leaves off of it, and you got to boil it up 2 or 3 times. You got to cook it with some meat grease or bacon grease or Crisco, some sort of vegetable shortening. And you boil the water off of it 2 or 3 different times before you can eat it. If you don't prepare it properly, you can guarantee you're going to take a trip to the hospital. It will actually poison you.
And it never ceases to amaze me. Yeah, never ceases to amaze me that people would tempt themselves. Like, why would you eat something that's potentially poisonous?
Yes, that's true. Yes. But I tell you what, I think it goes back to the colonial days and the early settlers' days, because in the very early spring, some of the first plants to start producing leaves and growing are poke plants.
Right.
So, maybe the people are hungry through the winter, say, well, if we can just make it until the poke comes out,
Now, here's a funny story that completely not in the Bigfoot topic, but as we're talking about stuff, a lot of people, especially in the 1700s, thought tomatoes were poisonous.
Yeah.
And you know why? Because of those little red berries.
Oh.
Right? They look like little tomatoes, tiny little tomatoes, right?
Yeah.
And what happened is people would eat them and get deathly sick. Some people would die back in the 1700s. Right. And that's why they learned very quick those are poisonous, don't eat them. And they thought that because of the red color, that tomatoes were the same way.
It's been a while, but I think tomato plants are actually a member of the nightshade family or something.
I have no idea. Again, I don't know much about plants.
Yeah, I'm pulling from the 1990s here, so.
but it was actually our third president, Thomas Jefferson, that stopped the scare about tomatoes, and he used to serve them regularly at the White House.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Good education.
So, I was like, wow. But getting back on topic, what is the legacy we leave? Legacies can be forgotten for a while. And my fear is that people are going to, Chris, am I a firebrand? Because I'm asking for the truth of things and I debunk things. Am I a firebrand?
No, I don't think so at all. No.
And
you're just looking to get to the bottom of it.
And when people ask me to show restraints, on shows, it's like, do you think I go on shows and start?
Yeah, I get you.
I just don't understand that. And it happens to me every so often. And I'm like, what do you think I say? Just because I'm vocal that, this person I believe is this and that, believe. When we show examples, when I show something, when I say this person is doing this, I have the receipts. Yeah. Right. And to me, it's very irresponsible sometimes not to name names.
Well,
as a journalist, and that's what I came into this trying to be. That's what SquatchDetective.com was originally going to be, was trying to be like a news agency, but it turned very quickly into, because there was so much garbage out there. And we see that now tenfold thanks to social media and people like the show, like we did on the Bigfoot Friday nights, like we did on that one particular article with the video. I'm going to lose the hat. It's getting warm in here. like the one video. I'm sorry if the glare is bothering anybody.
Get you some of that stuff football players wear under their eyes.
Right. Thank you, Peace Frog, and welcome again. We have so many new subscribers. Welcome all.
Yeah.
We appreciate that.
Good to see you guys.
And tonight it's just kind of a general week. We're gonna have a guest for next week. I've been, the person I was trying to get on this week, she's actually on vacation, so I'm not going to bother her until Tuesday or so. Or after the holiday here.
I want to bring this one on. Bring this comment up before it gets too far up the page there. And Kaiju Ninja 1985 says, you got to wonder how many Bigfoot have gotten sick from eating things in the wild.
Very true.
I think that they probably teach their young, what to eat and what not to eat. I think.
Same thing with the chimpanzees. I mean, I don't think they go blindly out into the night. I mean, obviously, chimpanzees, which have cultural differences, there's certain chimps that will take the sticks and go into the ant mounds. There's certain chimps that live in areas where there are no ant mounds, so they learn something else. And
there's stuff in the woods that I know people eat, but I won't because unless I've had it before already. I'm kind of wary of it.
Right. And John made another great comment out there. Saying he used his real name and talked to Genesis about the Ketchum report and got so much hate for just reporting facts. It's just the community reacts, not the entire community. The blind belief is bad sometimes. You got to understand, the Bigfoot community is set up into, thank you. The Bigfoot community is set up into a couple of divisions. You have your research division, right? And then you have your enthusiast division, people that just are there on social media to chit chat and blab and do whatever. And those are the places you normally get, unless, of course, people show up here and then they get the truth and they learn it and they understand it. And that's why we have the greatest audience in the world. It's because truth is always the first here. If the new book, I talk about the blind belief. I talk about something called cognitive dissonance. And of course, part of that is also confirmation bias. They have a sighting of Bigfoot, then they want to believe so bad that they're correct or validate themselves internally so bad. Right. Whereas other people, let me say the people that have a sighting and then believe everything, that is more of a form of PTSD. But for the most people who have sightings that are validated, do not have that PTSD. They may have PTSD, but not reflective in that part of the mind, and they may be afraid to go to the area or not want to go back out into the woods and get very nervous and shaky and stuff like that out in the woods, but they're not believing everything either. So there's something called cognitive dissonance where they're going to believe what they want to believe and it omit I think it's called perceptive biases, where you're told this information but you're really not listening to it. You're only listening to the pro information, not the con. Or if you're a skeptic that has confirmation bias, which they are there too, they'll only listen to the con and ignore the pro.
Yeah, you get to weigh all the evidence. You can't just sort through and pick out what you like and just dismiss what you don't. It don't work.
So Mick asked, is there a Bigfoot community? Yes. How can you deny that?
There's several different factions.
I mean, if you think about it, hold on. Let's lay this out. Everybody, let's stop thinking that, and John, I understand, but how is that different from anything else? That is a human quality, all right? That goes back to our primitive roots. I'm the apex predator. I'm the alpha male. I'm the alpha female. I'm the, right? It's just a microcosm of everything. I mean, you want to expand it out. The same thing happens in the ufology areas. The same thing happens in the cryptid world. Same thing happens in the dogman community. Same thing happens in the paranormal community. Guess what? if you watch a particular documentary, I'm trying to. This gentleman went missing, and they found him deceased in a tent. And this Facebook group started with this woman leading this effort to find out who this guy is. And it was a internet driven thing, and everybody was moving forward. And guess what happened? Division in the ranks. Another Facebook group splintered off and did their own thing. And one was saying they're doing it wrong. Another group was saying they're doing it wrong. The second group actually got the confirmation first. The first group says, well, it was our information that did it first. It happens everywhere. If you look at the microcosm of this country: Democrat, Republican, Independent, Conservative, Liberal, Libertarian, Working Families Party, Communist Party, Socialist Party. There is divisions everywhere. It's not unique to the Bigfoot world. So stop thinking it is, and thinking that there needs to be this great movement to make it all, one nation, like a one solid thinking army. Because when we all think the same, regardless if you believe in woo or don't believe in woo, or you believe in portals or believe in the UFOs, if you all think the same thing, you're not going to get anywhere. It takes a combination of people's inputs. Even if they are wrong, it may set you into the right path. Just like for me, I listen to the skeptics, even the ones that are dead wrong about certain things, because it helps me better explain my arguments for it and try to push the reality of this down the field. Yes, Batmom, you were absolutely right.
Yeah.
It was the guy in the tent was the hitchhiker that he was kind of he was kind of just a wanderer. He was wandering around.
Well, Mick put one up here, and I think it's a good point. There's no sense of community among various reasons.
David says it's a mixed bag of nuts in all paranormal fields. It's a mixed bag of nuts anywhere. Anywhere.
Well, I think you have some researchers that work together with other researchers, but are not openly sharing with the entire Bigfoot community of everything that they've learned. And there are reasons for that. And you have other researchers, so-called, that will go out and film a video on YouTube and post a YouTube video on their channel every day of Bigfoot, which probably not that believable. Yeah, Batmom's right. Yeah, it's in all fields. Yeah.
It's in all fields everywhere. It doesn't matter if it's I'm sure there's dissent and plumbing groups, and I'm sure there's this on how to properly install the elbow on your sink.
Right.
Well, no, you should do it this way. No, you should do it that way. Well, I found it's better to do it this way. You see, It happens everywhere.
Yeah.
And then you have people lining up. Well, I agree with this guy. No, I agree with this guy. Well, this guy's got an F rating on the Better Business Bureau. Why are you listening to it, right? So it can go on anywhere, and it does.
Yeah.
So the Bigfoot community is not unique.
No.
And when we say community, it is a community, because these are people that gather up because they have a belief, for the most part. They have a belief in the creature's existence, or the hoping it exists.
Yeah, I think it is, but it's everybody. It's a grouping of everybody together. But just like within any community, you'll have certain members of that community will have different goals than other members.
Right.
And some of them may be in it to make money, regardless whether they have to hoax to get that money or not.
Right. And
that's true, Mick. Yeah, I believe that's true.
Correct. Right. There are a number of researchers, and there's a research community. Yeah. And guess what? The research for the community But then again, they have their issues too. But that's okay, because at the end of the day, at least the research community, when they have their arguments, is generally based on their findings, not on and their beliefs. That's based on some sort of science.
Right. And when you get researchers that share between themselves and not put it out to the general public, things that help each other with their research, that means a lot.
You see, there's stuff I do not disseminate on websites. There's stuff I do not disseminate on YouTube. There's stuff sometimes I don't disseminate in my lectures.
Yes, because
right. But everything it's like a pyramid to me. You don't disseminate the most on social media. You don't disseminate next most on YouTube. You don't disseminate. The next level is the presentations. And then finally, the one where you give a little bit more in each category. And finally, like there's stuff you will get if you go to one of my lectures. If you get me sidebarred and talk to me alone, you may even get more, because when I'm personally talking to one-on-one people, then you may hear some extra little elements that maybe that I'm wishy-washy on, and I do not want to put that as public because I have no real evidence to back it up, but I may have some thoughts, right? I'm very careful, and this is the way research should be and stuff.
And some of the stuff that you release, you got to be careful not to release it to the general public, because you might end up creating a better hoaxer.
That has been thought of too. But it doesn't matter. If there's one thing I realized, and this is what infuriates me about what I call the ignorance of the retail. Now I'm going to go into my professional side. For many years, I worked as a agent, a undercover informant, a frontline fighter, an investigator for retailers that deal with theft, and even an analyst in one particular case that deal with theft. And 99% of the retailers are so stifled by lawyers. They're afraid. They're afraid of this and they're afraid of that. Let me cut the chase on all of that. Mm-hmm. This is a very interesting topic, and this is why, and I'm going to show you its relevance into the Bigfoot community, because everything is relevant, and people don't understand that. Like, this is not just a Bigfoot community issue.
I'll join with you, Kaiju. We'll both be members.
I'll join the platypus, but you know what? I'm going to pull a book at a trackway. If we have a big party, it's going to have a long, big bill. That's for sure. We have the platypus community party. It's going to have a big bill.
I'm in as long as I don't get stuck with a bill.
That's right.
Okay. That was terrible.
Now, I'll give you a great example about why hoaxers, it doesn't matter, why we always have to up our game as investigators. A lot of people will say, oh, well, I've discovered it this way, and I'm going to rest on my merits and always try to investigate it this way. You have to be evolving as an investigator, and I'll tell you why. You mentioned that, we sometimes hold things back because we don't want the cat out of the bag. Well, why do you think so many people will not email legitimate trail cam photos in the raw, in photos they take with cameras or anything raw in email or via, cloud sharing to a researcher, to an investigator, because they're trying to hide something, right? Because they realize the metadata will get them. So, but when a big production company out in LA doing a show for Penn and Teller decided to pull off a hoax, they weren't smart enough at the time. They should really hide the metadata on the photos. Right. And I ended up getting those photos off the website, which was put up there in raw form, which a lot of websites do not do anymore. Right. And I was able to conclude that, well, why are these pictures out of sequence? Why would you take a picture of the dog 3 days later? Blah, 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 blah.
Right.
But anyway, they adjusted. They always adjust. So that's what these retailers don't understand is they sit there and, God dang it. They sit there, and I wish I had the nice wireless ones. I can't find wireless ones for this damn mic.
Yeah,
Anyway.
with that metadata, though, Steve, before you go on, see, by revealing that and how you busted it, now the next hoaxers will say, okay, I've got to change the metadata to match my story.
You can't. You can't change the metadata once it's put in there. The only way you can do it is if you process it through like Adobe or a PhotoPad or video pad or whatever. Then you can change those synaptics on it.
But rather than just making up a story and then putting any date they want to it, they could go back and look at the metadata and say, yeah, I was out there at 9:52 a.m. on the 3rd of October.
Right.
And then their data backs it up.
Well, they can't change the metadata. None of those programs will allow you to change the time the picture is. The only thing you can do is erase it and redo the whole metadata as a stamp.
Right.
You can change metadata on audio. You can change metadata. You can even change metadata, I think, on video, but you can't. The pictures are really wonky like that. There's really.
Yay.
Thank you, Jay.
Jay Fritz gifted 5 Squatch-D DTV memberships. Thank you, Jay, so much.
But let me go back to this example. I'll explain why. Is retailers are not the brightest people. Well, the problem is that the people at the head are not listening to the people on the front lines, or don't listen to the people that know the industry. The industry back in the 90s, instead of promoting people from up the ladder, they started taking people and say, well, if you're a manager, you're part of our management team, we'll move you over to this department and we'll train you how to be a loss prevention district manager or a regional manager. All these. So you have these people that eventually climb up that corporate ladder. They've never did the frontline job. They don't understand the psychology of the criminal, right? And then they listen to the lawyers and they say, well, we don't want any lawsuits. You got these guys grabbing these people, and so we got to take away their handcuffs. We got to take away their ability to touch shoplifters. We got to take away the ability for them to stop shoplifters and thieves and stuff like that. And oh my goodness, it's Christmas time. We can't interview a dishonest employee during Christmas time. It wouldn't look good on the company, right? This is their line of thinking, right? But the fact is this: is that people are dynamic. Why do you think you have mobs of people running in or people grabbing stuff? It has nothing to do with, a lot of it had nothing to do with bail reform or light sentencing or all of that stuff initially, right? It's been growing consistently over the years before bail reform. Yeah, bail reform spiked it because now you have government giving them a pass. Right. But what happens is that retailers number one, they're afraid of being sued. You know what? How's that working for you now when you're closing half the stores in a state because your shoplifting is crime? How does that feel now when you're spending millions of dollars to lock up stuff that normally you weren't locking up before? How does that feel? Right. They'd rather spend the money. They'd rather spend $10 million to lock their stuff up and spend $3 million on litigation.
Yeah.
Right? The problem is that people, especially bad guys, especially people that want to take advantage, and this is what people don't understand, is that when the hoaxers get creative, you as an investigator need to get creative too and start looking at different aspects. Right? What happened is that in 1994, they turn around and it's new creation of something. They said this is going to cut shoplifting in by 75%. It's going to save you so much in loss, so much in payroll. You don't have to hire as many agents to stop people from stealing and all this nonsense. Right? So it's called electronic article surveillance. EAS.
Those are the little barcode or tags where they can
Right.
read it as you're going out the door, right?
Right, correct. And they deactivate them at the ridge, right?
Yeah.
They didn't care that for the normal customer, it was a big pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Right. Because, they're supposed to deactivate. And if our checkers are doing, again, corporate world lives in this perfect friggin' world that people are going, and this is going to cut, right? The biggest, and what amazes me is that this is what I saw. The shoplifters and the thieves were wary of it for about 3 months.
Mm.
Then they figured, we'll just start peeling the tags off. Or we'll start wrapping them up.
Right.
Or we'll just take the stuff out of the packaging and just take the material.
Yeah.
Or we'll just run out the door. Who cares? Right? They adapted. 10 years later, guess what? The losses were exceeding what they were before they put the shit in. Pardon my French. Right?
Yeah.
But what did they do?
Yeah,
No, exactly. What did they do? What did they do after that? Company said, don't worry, we're putting these systems in. It's not going to reduce our loss prevention workforce or anything like that. And what did they do? 6 months after they put the stuff in, they laid off about 50% of us. I survived the cut, but they laid off a bunch of damn good people. So now I'm doing twice the store visits. And guess what? It went like this for about 3 months. And then what did it do? Right back up to where it was. Right. Yeah. I mean, really, do any of those systems, obviously those systems don't work anymore, right?
Right.
The shoplifter, the technology hasn't changed and the shoplifter hasn't changed. They're just gotten smarter about it. Now we just got to take an extra step. Either we're going to run out, wrap your tags, or we're going to take the stuff out of the packaging.
Yeah.
Right? They didn't have that foresight. They thought, oh my goodness, these people are going to be so scared of it. The one advantage it did was it made the shoplifters look really obvious. Like, he's working on the package. Right? It's about the only thing it did. It didn't stop people from doing it, though, which is what their initial claim was. So what did it matter? How is it saving the company more money? Now they're spending money on providing these tags and system upkeep, and then there's maintenance contracts every year, and they're still doing it to this day. And the only person it friggin' annoys is the good customer when I buy something and I'm walking out the store and the damn thing comes off and everybody's looking at me like I stole something.
Yeah. Right? Yeah.
So
I've been got one of those tags on a pair of jeans that my wife bought for me. I was going into a store and the little bars there next to the door started going beep, 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 beep. And I'm like, what? The store personnel come over to me and said, I'm coming in. I don't know why the heck I'm beeping, but I'm beeping.
100%, Don. I worked a job. One of my last great loss prevention jobs was I worked basically as an analyst. I would watch these people steal stuff and I would identify them and I would build cases on them and take it and I had a great working relationship with the Gilderland Police Department and with the Colony Police Department. I would meet with their investigator. That Gilderland has their own retail theft officer that I deal with. But Colony, I had an investigator assigned to me and we would meet, a couple of times a month for a few hours. And I would build these cases up with video. I would use my own resources, my own intelligence reports to identify about 85 to 90% of them. Like, okay, this is this person, this is that person. This is one of our guys. He just got pinched over here, and vice versa. So, what I just said, I don't understand at all. Anyway,
those RFID or RFID tags.
RFID, yep. Yeah, and what that stands for is radio frequency identification.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, on this pair of jeans that Sandy had bought for me, they had one of those little small rectangle plastic piece sewn into the pocket inside my jeans.
Okay, so hold on. Let me
it
stop.
Never was deactivated.
Right. Let me stop you there.
Mhm.
Little strip, right? Little strip
Little plastic strip. Yes.
has a barcode on it, right?
I don't remember. I
Well,
think
man, some of them don't have a little.
it was
mark.
electronics. It was
Right.
electronics inside this little plastic.
Right. You open it up and there's a little metal strip in it.
Yeah, I didn't open it up, but I felt
So
it had electronics.
with that tag is actually not an RFID chip. That is a magnetic sensor. It's called the acousto-magnetic. There's two types of well, actually there's three now. There is acousto-magnetic,
Right.
and then there's radio frequency, and then there's radio frequency ID. Okay.
That's the one that reads like the barcode or something. Right?
No, they all sometimes they have foul barcodes on them.
Okay.
And the reason why they put foul barcodes on them is here comes another stroke of genius. We put foul barcodes on them to make it so it confuses the shoplifter, so they don't know what it is. They think it's just a barcode to scan the item to ring up. Right? Yep.
Well, actually, yeah. When
so anyway, what those are is that what happens is that there's a magnetic signal going on between the two pedestals, and when that metal strip goes in there, it breaks that signal and it goes off. Whereas a radio frequency EAS system, usually they're square tags and they're very thin paper-like. And if you ever peel one off, it looks like a bunch of coils, like an antenna. And what they do is there's two signals being sent by the two pedestals. And when you walk in and that amplifies the signal, right, it sets the system off. Now, what RFID is where you enter an item and each item has a particular identification number. So there you can actually know which item is which, and you can track them. So like, item number 64 got sold to this credit card number. And this was the big problem. Well, that credit card number belongs to Steve Coles. So we're going to send him all kinds of junk in the mail for coupons about that product, right? Or emails or whatever.
Yeah.
So that was and people didn't like that particular thing. Oh, they're invading our privacy by seeing what we can buy. They do it all the time. And they've done it. They've done it long before there was even technology.
Right. Yeah. And prior to your birthday or Father's Day, you guys, just start talking about what you would like to have and near your wife's phone. Just start mentioning names of specific items. And lo and behold, her internet searches will pop up with ads for that item.
Well, yeah, they sneak on your internet history. If you're like, hey, this looks pretty cool, and you're watching a video on a particular item, or you're looking on the web about the cost of it, and next thing you know, here comes this little ad.
Yeah.
Yes, hello, you can buy this at this price.
Yeah, if you use the internet, man, right. Privacy, you throw it out the door. It's
so my point being is that no matter how no matter how ingenious hoaxers get, they will always be beat by investigators that follow initiative.
Right.
Right. If you constrain that investigator for those initiatives, forget it. And that's the reason why I retired from that field last year, was because I was sick and tired of you're making it tougher and tougher and harder for me to do my job. And, and to us, it's not just a job, it's a passion.
A recent
recent
example of the hoaxers getting, of course, it was the thylacine photos, which they're not Bigfoot, but it's a hoax. And they were really, really up in their game on that deal. That was because there were certain points during that investigation, I was throwing my hands up in the air going, oh my God. But as it turned out, no, that was a false.
And how did I figure that one out? I had no intelligence other than a 0.3 second screenshot.
Right.
Of a name.
Name on a screenshot.
A name on a screenshot with an icon, and that icon came back to the suspect's dog.
Right.
Done. That's why you have to think outside the box. You have to be alert and have to be a good investigator. Was that something unique or no? sometimes it just takes your keen skills. The keener you are at your skill, the better you are. That's why I wrote the book about the the Bigfoot guide and doing the psychology of Bigfoot. The reason why I wrote that was to kind of get people some clearer thought and how psychology to me plays a lot into Bigfoot witness sightings now. And that's why people with children, they're sitting there laughing, going, ooh, ah, ooh, ooh, makes no sense. 20 years ago. Hello, Pancho. Good to see you, sir.
David Parker. Have you seen the photo where it's just a dirty Alf doll?
I have not.
I have neither.
And let me explain a lot to people is that about the last year, if people notice that that I'm not looking at a lot of these pictures,
well, it's a time restraint too. I mean, it's a time thing. You can't look at
the time thing. And the other thing too is, if anybody has ever known anything about the behavioral analysis unit at Quantico, they're the profilers, right? And they work serial murder cases all around the country. And the reason why they get rotated off that unit for at least 6 months every year and a half. And do you know why? Because
their mental health.
For their mental health. But why? From not so much from seeing this death and mayhem, it's because of having that constant frustration of not solving something or not being able to answer something. So to me, it's a combination of I need to take a break. That way I can come back with fresh thoughts. Right. I don't look at that stuff on a daily basis because I don't want to be angry every time. Right? Yeah. I don't want to be frustrated every time. Well, okay, is this it? Ugh, really? Yeah. So there's times I give myself breaks from looking at that kind of stuff. What I do is I spend a few hours a day before a show either figuring out what we want to talk about or getting a guest and getting that prep ready and getting the stuff. I'll spend another few hours during the week putting together a video.
Yeah, we covered this one. We covered that one Friday night, John. Yeah. A good example.
Yeah. So it's really important that you take a step away. Now, there's times when I'm on every single day. And literally, I had been from January of actually September of last year. I've been on it every day up until about 6 weeks ago, where I'm like, I need just to slow myself a little bit down because you don't want to burn out. Yeah. When you burn out, you start making mistakes. Yeah. Right. And the biggest mistake I can make is calling something a hoax that's not a hoax. That's why I always try to have those receipts. Yeah. Right. So that's huge. And calling out something as a hoax or believing it's a hoax is not being, pardon the expression, a dick. It's because we're dedicated to the truth. That's what any investigator is duty bound to do. That's what, every scientist is duty bound to do. And Chris, take over for a second. I got to let the office assistant in.
Yeah, go ahead, man. Look at some of these comments over here. You guys were talking about the platypus and the duck and the beaver for the platypus. That's pretty good. Let's see. I'm trying to get. I think I've got most of the questions though as we've been going along.
Okay, the office assistant is now in position.
I got most of the questions as we've been going along, but there was some discussion earlier, a theory about a beaver and a duck creating a platypus. That makes sense.
A beaver and a duck would create
Beaver and a duck.
beaver and a duck would create a buck.
Or, I think they were talking about a duck wearing a beaver costume or a beaver wearing a duck costume.
You'd either have a deaver or a buck. I guess the buck stops there.
Well, back when I lived in Alamogordo, New Mexico, you couldn't go into a hunting shop out there or gun store without seeing a jackalope, which was a jackrabbit with a little, antelope antlers, with just the tips of some antlers mounted in there. And that seemed like a really popular little thing. Just a joke, but I can imagine there are a lot of people that saw those and like,
right.
Right. But just a taxidermy joke.
Here's my 2 cents on this whole thing too. Is what's your legacy? What's the legacy of a person? Well, I mean, let's look at. Well, I mean, who are the contemporaries that are soon to be retired from the field? What's it going to be like in 20 years for Tom Biscardi? What's his legacy? They're all going to point to 2008.
Yeah.
He was one of the 3 frontmen on that whole farce.
Hoaxer.
Right.
Hoaxer, that'll be his legacy.
That Stagecoach, his association with one from another generation, Ivan Marks.
Yeah.
Right. Had Ivan not done all that chicanery with the whole film, even if he was hoaxing the Vosburg tracks and presented them and he sold them as a bill of goods,
yeah.
If he didn't do that hokey film, he still might have had the reputation he had prior to 1971. Yeah. Right.
And he even went off on a tangent there during his the Legend of Bigfoot movie when he was in Alaska. He started talking about the lights over on the tundra, which were unrelated, in my opinion, to Bigfoot.
So what's the legacy of going to be of Todd Standing?
Muppets. Jim Henson.
These folks don't understand is that in 20 or 30 years, in 10 years after gone, hell, probably in a year after they're gone, there ain't nobody going to be there to defend them no more. Not Blinky. There's going to be nobody to defend them no more. Give it another 10 years. All those Stanlings will fall off. All the Biscardiites will fall off. Yeah, the same thing with How to Hunt. People like that. Channels that do stories or channels that do this, that they're leaving no legacy except, what's going to end up happening? And they're gone and they're out of the, look at Facebook Find Bigfoot. There was 2 researchers out of that group, right? And, they were good, solid researchers for a while. They even went out. They were the guys that actually debunked the Mr. Mike saga back in 2010. They were the ones that Landfear sent out to wherever the hell it was they went to and said, no, this guy lives in the middle of the neighborhood, yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. But then they go on after that to create this channel that wanted to be so pro Bigfoot. And they got stuck in so much confirmation bias. They got stuck in their own biases that the creature existed. And there was a few videos they put out there. And well, look at the body of this, and and they were right. And it sounded good, but it was word salad. That's what it was. It sounded good, but it was word salad. And then they put out something there, and I said, "Hey, that's a hoax. Oops, our mistake." Because the person admitted the interstate hoax video. The guy admitted it was a hoax to me.
Yeah.
Right.
But everything they put up after a while was, this is verified Bigfoot. This is Bigfoot. And this is the reason why, and they're pointing out things and you're seeing a guy in a suit.
And what do they know? That nobody knows them anymore. So much for their legacy. Nobody knows them. And even worse, they were doing it anonymously. So they even know them less. But I knew who they were.
Yeah.
And then and Matt Moneymaker put their names out there because they used to be members of the BFRO. Right? But the minute he did that, this little weasel, I call him a weasel because he looks like a weasel. This Vermont researcher by the name of Chris Noel, doesn't say a word until I say something. The reason why is, Noel kisses Moneymaker. He just, wants it. Keep in good standing with Matt Moneymaker. Right? But Noel goes after me for putting their names, repeating what Matt Moneymaker had said.
Yeah.
And he tries to say, you need to basically lie and tell you were mistaken about that. I don't lie for anybody. Don't lie for anybody and block. That shows that guy's integrity, wanting somebody else to lie.
Yeah.
Because he considered it my immoral deed. Sorry, it's not immoral. These are the people behind Facebook Find Bigfoot. How is that immoral? Now, if I was saying, oh, they have children and here's their children's names and where they go to school and all, that would be immoral. Yeah. Oh, here's their address here, doxing them. That would be immoral. But just naming them, especially when one of them actually used his real name on Coast to Coast AM, talking about HARP and the government's manipulation of the weather. So there you have it.
Well, I'm sure there have been experiments where the government tried to change the weather, like by seeding clouds and things of that nature. Yep. I don't think they do it on a routine basis, though. I mean, I could be wrong. I'm willing to accept that as somebody knows something that I know.
That's fine. But, the guy's acting like this is a big...
right.
This is a big... a big secret, when really it's not. All you have to do is a little digging. That's how I found, and that's why I didn't mind naming them. Their names are already out in public.
Nick's killing me over here. But always tell the truth. Always be honest. That's and that's such an easy thing to do. Why do people struggle with telling the truth? Why do people struggle with honesty, especially when they're in the subject of Bigfoot? Why struggle with
it? They were.
Yes.
DM Zaba said the 4 horsemen were much more special. All of us, we were so lucky to have those men. We were. But here's the fact of that, DM, is if we didn't have those particular 4 men, I'm sure we would have 4 other men. There would have been somebody to take their place. Yeah. No doubt. There would have been somebody that got... these guys were getting the main gumption of the attempt. Right. These particular 4 guys. And I'll get to that in a second. In truth, think about the other people that were involved. Bob Titmus, who was the guy who taught Jerry Crew how to cast a print. Yeah. There was Bob Titmus. There was there's a few more I'm thinking about. I'm having my Geritol moment. Because when you put that comment up, you cut my train of thought on that.
Sorry, bud.
That's all right.
Well, one of us needs to keep the train on the track.
Ray Crow. There's another great researcher, Ray Crow. How about Danny Perez? Danny Perez has been writing a Bigfoot newsletter forever.
Right. Since the internet, I think.
Before the internet. Right. I mean, and you think about that, and then you have folks, and I don't live in this bubble, but that same Vermont researcher has written books before that took a lot of scientific liberty, I may add, And because of that, and because he has an academic degree from a college, and I remember his statement, and I never felt that it would be such a shame for us not to be able to work together because we're such important researchers for the Northeast. Well, I'm glad you think so, but you're only as good as what you do yesterday. And that's another thing you have to live by too when you're doing this. You're only as good as what happens yesterday.
And one of the things, Steve, we had discussed it a little bit before about John Green. Okay. John Green was probably one of the most valuable collectors of Bigfoot Sasquatch information to ever have breathed air. But yet he was actually not a devout researcher as far as going in the field. He would go, walk 10 miles to collect the story about Bigfoot and record that information.
And as far as Canada goes, what about Tom Steenberg?
Yeah. Awesome researcher. Love Thomas.
I'm trying to think the guy, John Green's research partner, that tall guy. I have right now. I'm having a brain fart.
Yeah, the one that went to the Patterson site, walked through. What was his name? He's 6'5".
He's friends with me. He's friends with me on Facebook. Well, yeah, Lauren Coleman was pounding the pavement as well. And you know what? People used to give Lauren a lot of crap. Oh, you're just nothing but an armchair researcher and blah, blah, blah. Well, Lauren has a spinal disability. And that's why he doesn't tromp around the woods since his injury. Right. But prior to that, he was in the woods quite a time. In the 70s and 80s, he was in the woods.
Oh, Kaiju Ninja brought up Robert W. Morgan, still one of his favorites.
Very true.
I think he.
Thank you, Boris. Jim McLaren.
Yeah, Jim McLaren. Yeah.
As soon as you said the last name, Jim McLaren.
Yeah, McLaren. Yeah. But Robert Morgan, he did some. Was it in the 1970s? He did a Bigfoot expedition that he was in charge of, and that was a lot of good stuff came out of that. I mean, it surely brought awareness, And I can remember as a kid watching this. He's talking about his sighting, how the creature ran through the bush. It didn't go around the bush; it ran straight through the bush. And but there's one thing that kind of bothered me about Robert Morgan, and not to take anything away from his research. Okay, I'm sure he was a great researcher, but he did have at one time he was offering cassette tapes for sale about how to have a sighting with the forest people, and he kind of went on to a tangent about these were people, if you know what I mean.
Correct.
Rather than a creature, these were a group of people living in the woods.
Right.
And I can't say that I agree with that.
I he's up there in age now.
He's got it. Yeah, he's got his own way of thinking about it too.
Yep. But then again, we don't know if that's kind of changed a little bit because ideas will change over time. Right. And when he made those statements, one thing we didn't have back then was DNA. And we didn't understand what DNA does. If something has a different foot structure, a different, consistently hairy, consistently having, a lack of a neck, right? Body structure differences. There's a difference in DNA, so that does not make them people as we consider that. If you look up the Oxford Dictionary meaning of people, it means human beings, Homo sapiens.
Yeah, and they would have to have some sort of culture that would separate. I mean, living in the woods, could that be considered a culture? Well,
let me also explain this too. And I know DM Zabo asked the question. I mean, you have people that are still around that have been around since the 70s. Bill Bramwell, he just passed away, unfortunately. He was another one that did a lot of archiving of stories. Yeah. Paul Bartholomew, he's still kicking. He was just at Monster Fest this past weekend in Ohio. There's another guy who archives a lot of different stories about it. Stan Gordon from Pennsylvania, right? And these folks, they may not all agree exactly on what a Sasquatch may be or what its involvement in other events, but the one thing we can do is respect one another's ideas. Everybody has their own reason of thinking.
Sabos. Yeah. What about the guy who did Monster Quest? It was Doug Highcheck. Yeah.
How about
And
Paul Freeman?
awesome.
How about
Yeah.
Paul Freeman? How about Wes Sutherland? And Boris brought those names up. You're absolutely right. There are so many great names, and remember our the Four Horsemen. They were great, but I don't think they were any better than any of these guys. I think these guys we would have been calling 4 other people the Four Horsemen. If John Green, Renee DeHinden, Grover Krantz, and Peter Byrne decided not to get involved, I think we would be calling 4 other people the Four Horsemen. And the reason why they were called the Four Horsemen is that they all got together in the late 1950s to do a couple of names we have omitted from this. Tom Slick.
Yeah.
And Ivan Sanderson.
Yeah. Ivan T. Sanderson. Read a lot of his books when I was a kid. Good stuff.
How about Dr. John Napier? Now, he was not a believer in the Patterson-Gimlin film, but he was a big believer in that something was out there. He had seen the footprints, too, and was baffled by them. Right. And John Napier was a curator of the Smithsonian Institution.
Yeah, I mean, we had the Four Horsemen there because they were first. They were first. It's just like when you think about the...
Right. Dr. John Bindernagel.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Leroy Fish, and of course Dr. Wolf Henner Fehrenbach. I mean, Henner is still alive, as far as I know. How about Jimmy Chilcutt? How about Jimmy Chilcutt? He was the
interesting work with the dermal ridges. That was groundbreaking.
Well, hold on. Meldrum is a contemporary right now, but he is like one of the new Four Horsemen.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Right. But he's contemporary. We're talking people who are not involved anymore. Legacy. Remember Legacy.
Yeah, Mick Henry May is our Sasquatch.
Guys, we're not talking about people that are in current research. This is all about legacy.
In the past, yeah.
In the past.
But they were the first, and that's why they were the Four Horsemen.
How about Don Keating? Don Keating. You got to look at like Don Keating, Stan Gordon, Dr. Warren Cook. Dr. Warren Cook, big time for putting Vermont and New York on the map for Bigfoot.
Right.
Anthropologist, Castleton State University. Don Keating for putting Bigfoot on the map in Ohio.
Yeah.
Although we forget, Larry Lund also lives in Ohio as well.
Yeah.
Larry Lund was also very big into that as well.
Well, yeah, Don had the video of the white one, that I always thought was like, wow, a white one.
So there are, tons of folks out there. Craig Woolheater putting, bringing the Bigfoot in Texas out about it. He was like one of the OGs. Daryl Collier was his big time research partner at the time from the Texas Bigfoot Research Center, TBRC, at the time.
I don't expect to leave a legacy other than when you look up the term Bigfoot Sasquatch, down at the very bottom it'll say discovered by Chris Bennett.
I like the way you think.
Yeah, that's the only thing I want. Discovered by Chris Bennett, right on the bottom.
Now comes the part where we throw our heads back and laugh. Ready?
Ready!
Man. Fred Beck. I don't know, Pat. Pat Collins brings up Fred Beck. I don't know.
He was a witness, not a researcher.
Yeah. And if you've read the encounter with Fred Beck, if you read on later on, years later, of course, it kind of changed a little bit. It goes from being we were gold miners, and
But
we were at the cabin.
But you see, Jerry Crew, Fred Beck, Albert Osman, they were all witnesses to something, right? They weren't researchers. Jerry Crew being the only exception, that he kept finding him on the work site and did a little, got reached out to by Bob Titmus, and they got together and taught him how to cast, and they brought the casts forward. But if you look at Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin, Roger especially, they were out looking for the greedy. They were very active in research. Patterson more than Gimlin, I believe, because if you think about it, Patterson did a lot of stuff on himself. It just so happened that day he was with Gimlin, that this expedition, he went out with Bob Gimlin. But still, they were out looking for it. So that is a little bit different than using Fred Beck to compare them or something like that. And I'll tell you what, Patterson was involved since the early 60s.
Yeah.
One of the first Bigfoot body hoaxes, gentleman by the name of Frank Curlow, claimed that he had a Sasquatch captured and they had it contained in a cave. And it actually caused a little bit of rift between Hendon, Patterson, and John Green, because they were all trying to juxtapose over one another to kind of get to it first, even though they were working together.
Pat, we brought up Ivan Sanderson a little earlier. Ivan T. Sanderson, he was a writer mostly, but he did do research. He did go to these places. He did put boots on the ground there, And
now, Mick, you bring up Tim Fasano, and Tim, as history will show, and I enjoyed Tim. We didn't get off on the right foot, but we ended up being friends. But he had a checkered past. There were some accusations made by people, including from a group that has long departed the Bigfoot scene, Team Taser. One of their guys, I think it was, and I don't even know if it was his real name, I forget his name, Dino, made some claims, but never really had any receipts for it or any gumption to continue that. I myself busted Fasano in hoaxing a website. Well, and that's how we ended up becoming friends, strangely.
Well, Tim's dead and gone. I don't want to
talk
anything negative or anything.
You know what? That man, if anything, I would say he was a guy that believed in what he was showing people. Mm-hmm. He was very passionate about the subject. He was a very caring and passionate individual. A lot of people do not know this, but I do, that he had a girlfriend that he went out to work one day and he was driving his cab in Tampa and had his own little blog. And good God, if YouTube was there when he was driving a cab, that would be some really entertainment gold.
Right.
But he came home one day and his girlfriend was deceased. Likely from an overdose or a medication reaction, right. Where you have what they call a synergistic effect, where somebody takes Valium with
they drink some alcohol and take some other drugs or something,
Suboxone or Haldol or other drugs. I almost said a Torvastatin, but that's cholesterol medication. And the man's devastation over that was pretty harsh. Yeah. Very intelligent guy. I think he was a guy that talked a little rough sometimes. And maybe that's what stopped his advancement in the world a lot of times. But when you got Tim talking prolifically and coherently, he was very astute. And I'll say that because, like I said, I've had private conversations with him over the phone.
Yeah.
And he had no love for hoaxers, that even though he kind of hoaxed the website himself. It's kind of a ruse, but.
Well, I always thought that Tim was trying to build a YouTube channel.
Was it, huh?
Tim was trying to build his YouTube channel, and he was putting content on there and stuff. And some of the stuff was maybe not as good as, others, but
Yep.
I don't blame him.
Hey, don't forget, it was Linda Newton Perry who stole his footprint picture and put it up there as happening in Oregon.
Oh, yeah.
So Tim calls her up, and then Tim calls me back. Well, she said she was sent that stuff, and she's a nice old lady, and blah, blah, blah. Like, good Lord, you don't know her, but that's okay.
Yeah.
But that's what he wanted to do. He wasn't, even though she took his picture and had all the evidence of all the other stuff she did, he was willing enough to say, hey, you know what? She's an older woman. I talked to her. I'm not going to give her crap on the phone, basically.
Yeah. That was big of him. It was. Yeah.
So, maybe someday we'll take a ride out to Plattsburgh, New York, where Tim is buried. His family was in Plattsburgh, New York.
I didn't know he had went from Florida back to New York when he was
buried. Yes, correct. He's buried in, I'm not sure what cemetery. I'll have to find that out. But I know he's buried in Plattsburgh, New York. So maybe I'll take us and the YouTubers out to
that would be good.
Plattsburgh, New York, and visit with his grave and
pay some respects.
Right. That is on the list of things to do for the channel.
He had a lot of stones to be out there tramping around in the brush in Florida because they have not only poisonous snakes, or excuse me, venomous snakes. They have all kinds of boa constrictors and things like that.
Well, they have poisonous frogs.
Yeah, I'm not going to eat one.
I can't touch it either. It'll.
Yeah.
Oh man. But
it's a porcupine.
It's a porcupine. But hang on a second. I got to let the office assistant out. Where people see, I don't have central air in the house yet, but I have one hell of an air conditioner that cranks air conditioning to the office into the living room. And for the show, I closed the door. And I got 3 bright lights going down on me, as you can tell by the shine off my head. So that's why I take my hat off, because it gets warm. I don't know if you can see that. You really can't see it, but it gets warm in here during a show.
A kid and a hoaxer.
So let me let the office assistant out.
You're talking about that. I got to be talking about that Sonic show. You got to be talking about that. A kid and a, what was that guy's name? Punches or something like that. I can't remember. I know he's got a series out, and I can't remember what it's called. Boris said, anybody come to Southern Oregon, let me know. Boris, I would love to go to Southern Oregon. I went through there like about 20 years ago now, and I love Oregon. It's beautiful. You got, dry areas, but then you got mountain regions where everything's green and running water. I love Oregon. Beautiful. That's probably Oregon and Washington State, probably the most 2 beautiful states I've ever been through, except, besides Kentucky. Okay. I love where I'm at, but beautiful area.
Kaiju Ninja 1985. Are you sure Bigfoot Tim was not about, what is his name? Tim, I forget his last name right now, but he was down in Binghamton, New York. There was another Tim that he was, God, it's been so long. He used to run like the Elmira Bigfoot Hunter. He was from Elmira, New York. And did a lot of work in New York and Connecticut Hill. And I'm not sure if Bigfoot Tim was, because it was a documentary film actually done by Doug and Dana Newkirk. They did a film about him back in the mid 2000s.
Got Tim Halloran, but was he in New York?
No.
Did the Bigfoot influencers?
No, Tim Halloran is the one who wrote the Bigfoot Influence.
Yeah,
He's been on our show.
Yeah, he did the Bigfoot Influence.
Right. He's actually from Connecticut.
Okay.
Okay. Roger that. Gotcha. Did not know that. I'm going to check it out. And I believe Tom is actually the one that lives in Plattsburgh. So anyway,
interesting. But you got to say, Tim was a big guy to let Linda Newton Perry steal his photo and not berate her for it.
Right.
He was probably a lot bigger than I would have been if she'd have stolen mine.
Well, as much as he thought he hated me at first, we ended up, just prior to his death, he popped on the show, remember?
Yeah.
And he said hello, and we had some good words, and off they went. He may have fudged the website, but he never, at least I have no receipts for him hoaxing a Bigfoot sighting. Although there are some folks down in Florida says, well, that was obviously what he was hearing was this. Okay, but we didn't see him doing that.
Right.
That's the issue. Yeah. Maybe he heard it. Maybe, I've been near power lines too.
Right.
And sometimes they just go for no reason at all.
Yeah.
We're still talking about the platypus. My question is where is Bill finding the trackway on this conversation?
I always thought Tim was a dedicated researcher, but the only issue that I ever had was one of his videos, at least on YouTube. He was talking about how he was deep in the woods, and then you could hear a car go by on the roadway behind him, directly behind him, like, right. So wait a minute, that's not right. Don't lie, children. They will get you for lying, same as you will stealing.
But then again, you know what? Here's the issue with that. I could sit there and go in a remote part of the Adirondacks, go into the woods, half mile,
right.
Come back out, and then I'm going to shoot my video because I can set my video tripod in some solid surface.
Sure, depending on the situation. Right.
And then I'm saying, hey, here we are. We are in the deep part of the forest, and the car goes by.
Right.
Right.
But see, I wouldn't do that because
that's just I would have edited it out. But again, you know what I mean? Is that to me could have an explanation?
Yeah.
Right.
It could have made the video after he came out of the woods. That's true.
Right.
But he doesn't say that. He didn't say that.
And I wouldn't necessarily either.
Yeah.
If you have the forest behind you that you just came out of, we're here in the deep forest. And you're not in the deep forest, but you were. Right. And it's the same forest.
Benefit of the doubt given.
Right. So to me, that's like, that's not a big receipt for anything.
No.
There's some receipts that are like worth their weight in gold, like a freezer receipt that you got right from the hands of Rick Dyer, from the hands of the clerk at the store, and said, well, that's funny. That's the night Biscardi flew in.
Well, I think as long as everybody, focuses on honesty and truth, that's the main things.
You see, Bobby Short, there's another person too that lived a long life, but unfortunately, her legacy is getting mucked up in her older age. And nobody knew Bobby Short's age. Everybody thought she was, because she would never put her current picture up there. She would put an older picture from the 70s up there. And she was, I believe, in her 80s, right? Or at the very least, high 70s when she passed. And she was brought these ideas by a particular gentleman. We all know who it is. He's the guy that goes around and talks about, everything in a missing person investigation, but the actual investigation.
Well,
But what I'm getting at is her legacy got marred up because she bought into it, right? But prior to that, man, she was always big with this great website, putting the information out there. And unfortunately, when she passed, I offered to actually buy that website at that time. It was in the middle of COVID. Had plenty of cash flow. I'll buy. I want them. And the son said, "No, I'm going to keep her stuff up for a while." Like, okay, whatever. And it's still up there. BigfootEncounters.com.
Yeah. Does he do any updates or anything on it? I hadn't looked on it for a long time. Let's see if I can open
that up now. There you go. If you look at Bat Mom just caught it when I was saying about the guy who never does the investigation. He only talks about the weird stuff. And the reason why I know that is because our good friends at CARC were actually doing a documentary on the gentleman that went missing on Lily Pond up in Warren County, New York. And when they were talking with family members, they were very reluctant to get involved with them at first because of their experience with that other aforesaid gentleman. And when they talked to law enforcement, they reflected the same thing back at there. Never once did that aforementioned gentleman really care about anything, about finding the person, about any of the feelings of the family involved. So to them,
the site's not updated, Steve. Sorry.
No, it won't be up. It won't be updated. No, he's just keeping it as a memorial, basically.
And on the first page, it says Adobe Flash is no longer supported. So evidently,
right. But he's keeping what I want to do. I wasn't going to change it either, but I think that's what he was probably afraid of. I wanted to keep it for the purpose of the same thing he's doing it. So,
well, keep it like it is, but keep it updated. I would think it's interesting,
right?
But that's his mom. Yeah.
But too, let me say this. Pilates was never, at least to my knowledge, was never a criminal investigator. He was a police officer. Right.
Well, he's bound to done some criminal investigation being a police officer.
You don't do that much.
I know there's a lot of paperwork involved.
Right. But the paperwork's involved with, okay, you arrived at the robbery. This is what you've seen.
Yeah.
Then it gets handed off to a robbery investigator. Right. They do the investigating. That's what the investigation division is. The patrol is responsible for responding to the calls. And then they turn that investigation over. They may do the initial investigation, but they don't do the deep-seated investigation, which he's attempting to do on the television series. Yeah. And again, he's another believer that there are people and that they're likely a tribe of ancient, Indian, Native American. Right. So whereas my job, I was investigating people all the time, putting cases together, and responding. So it's kind of like all wrapped in one, at least in my law firm. When I was a private investigator, I was doing my private investigation work. That was all investigation and some pretty deep-seated stuff. Like I said, I had one investigation that started out as an arson and led me to a murder that occurred in the town about 65 days earlier. That was some deep stuff. And I'll tell that story someday.
Y'all make sure you stick around because right at the end of the show, I'm going to go ahead and share with you how to become the ultimate success in life. Because it was muted out last time. I did that as a joke, but I'm going to really give it out tonight.
Oh, I know. I think I know what you're going to do. I think I know what you're going to do.
No. I'm going to share it. Really. I'm going to share it.
So,
The truth.
okay, so DM Zabo asked, what about the police officer from Whitehall? He passed not long. Now, the police officer that passed away from Whitehall was not Brian Goslin, who had the 1976 sighting. That was Dan Gordon, who had a sighting in 1982, I believe. Maybe in 1984. I get those 2 years mixed up a lot. But I believe it was 1984. I'm sorry, 1984. And
Later.
then he had a near fatal heart attack in 94 or 92. And that's when he came out publicly with it. So, yes, Dan is very sorely missed. He was a fixture at Whitehall, and I've had coffee with that man. I've sat in his home, and he's a great, great guy. And the last time I actually saw him, he kind of looked frail at the time, was at the town hall in Rutland, Vermont, at the Finding Bigfoot town hall. And that was the last time I had seen him. And again, retold his story there. And every time he told it, the poor guy would get almost in tears. So,
I would love to get up there.
well, Chris, it's 10:57.
All right.
So
Okay.
let's see the meaning of life, and then we'll get the heck out of here till Friday.
Okay. Well, first of all, not the true meaning of life, but it's how to achieve ultimate success within your own life. And there's only 3 things you have to remember. Only 3 things. The first one is just simply to be kind. Be kind to everybody. That's the easiest thing you can do. Be kind. The second one is to be kind. And the third one is to be kind. And if you'll do those 3 things, you will become the ultimate success. You will achieve ultimate success in your life. Now that comes directly from Mr. Rogers.
That's
And
true.
I know that's true because I learned that, and it was good advice then, and I think it's good advice now. Be kind.
And for those, I may be cantankerous here on the show. I may be, but people, and there's people in chat that have seen me at public events. And Chris has seen me at public events too.
Yeah.
And I try to give everybody that comes to me as much time as I can as possible with them. And you've seen me with the kids. When the kids
Check
come
out
up,
the live stream from Hocking Hills. You'll understand.
yeah. And it don't matter what kind of Bigfoot story you tell me. I'm not going to sit there and not berate you, or not just because I may not subscribe to a person's belief that they do this or do that. I always try to keep it real and understand that these people coming to me are telling me this experience, and they have to, they have some bravery to do that.
Right.
And we need to show that respect, regardless of what I might think of their sighting or anything like that.
Right.
And I'm appreciative of that as well. So
it's an honor to somebody
Right.
to share their story with you.
that is, and there was one gentleman that had a sighting in Ohio. The last time I really remember this, and I remember I said, "Hold on, let me get you Tater." Tater is Dave Wickham.
Yeah.
He's been
Yeah,
on the show
yeah.
a couple of times. Let me get you Taters,
Love taters.
and let me, because you're in Ohio, I'm in New York. He's an Ohio researcher. Let me get you guys together and do it. But anyway, folks, we are at the end of tonight's show. Want to say hello to all the new subscribers. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, guys.
Next week, I'm sure we're gonna have a great guest next week. I got an idea lined up. Hopefully, we can make that work out for next week. But I want to wish everybody a happy and safe week. Stay safe out there. God bless. Chris, do your thing.
Yeah, we appreciate everybody in chat. Thank you, guys. You are the greatest audience in Bigfooting, bar none. Thank you so much, and we're thrilled and honored to have you with us every time you show up. We appreciate you. If it's
Absolutely.
your first time watching the channel, hit that subscribe button, punch the like button on the way out if you like the show tonight. We appreciate you guys, and see you next time.
So next Sunday, we're planning for a pretty good guest coming on. And Friday, we're probably going to be looking at some Bigfoot sighting reports, maybe some evidence. We shall see. It's time to warm up the hands, roll up our sleeves, and get the peepers and the brain cells moving for that show. Anyway, folks, again, we'll catch you all here Friday night, 9 p.m. Eastern. And we'll catch you all here next time right here. Oh, and I just messed that up. Catch you here all next time here, right here on Squatch-D TV. Love you guys. Talk to you soon.
We thank you for being here with us on Squatch-D TV. If you haven't taken the time yet, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. And oh yes, hit that notification bell too. We don't want you to miss anything. If you really like our content, you should consider becoming a member, and it's really inexpensive and a great way to support not only the show, but honest Bigfoot research. Everyone have a great week. Be safe and God bless. We will see you all here next time on Squatch-D TV. Keep on squatching.